Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the afternoon session of Rackspace Solve New York. Please once again welcome our CTO, John N. Gates.
So everybody, welcome back from lunch. I hope you had a great lunch. I hope you had some great conversations. I saw a lot of activity up at the Solution Pavilion. I hope that was good activity up there. So let's get started with the afternoon. The next panel is actually going to be a speech, a little speech and a panel. Michelle Bailey of the 451 group is going to come up and join us, and she's going to talk about how the road to public cloud leads through the private cloud. And then right after that, she's going to talk to some of the leaders at Rackspace who lead up the private cloud practice areas. So Michelle Bailey from 451 Research. Why don't you come up to the stage and join us, and we'll hear all about private cloud, and how that's on the road to public cloud. Welcome, Michelle Bailey, please.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you to those of you who came back after lunch. It's always difficult to be the speaker after the food has come. I've been an analyst in this market for almost 20 years. I started out as a mid-range server analyst before I even really knew what that was. And I got to see the evolution of x86. I got to see internet. I've gotten to see virtualization. I've gotten to see a lot of different things in this market as the years have gone on. And just when we thought we had everything figured out and we had all of our data centers consolidated and all of our servers pretty much tied up, along has come this thing called cloud. And probably like a lot of you, I was pretty skeptical about it at first. How could this thing that doesn't really offer any services and is selling compute and storage by the drink, how could that possibly be successful? So I've been watching this market for the last 5 years or so, and what I've come to realize is that cloud has come along just at the right time. And if we think about where IT was maybe 15, 20 years ago, really the evolution of IT was around driving new business applications that made the organization more efficient, more productive. So within the organization, running business applications. And then, of course, we got into this great era of B2B, where everybody wanted to connect with their business partners. And wow, what an era that was, right? We all rode that for a long time. And so now where we are is what I think is probably one of the more interesting and exciting times of IT is our consumer era. And what do I mean by that? Well, we certainly see a lot of businesses, probably the businesses that you work in, move from being a B2B shop to very much a B2C shop and connecting more closely with your end customers. And of course, one of the more interesting parts of this is C2C, consumers talking directly to other consumers through social media outlets, social websites. So what we're seeing is very much an evolution of how IT is addressing the end user. And as we go through this period, what happens? The sphere of users gets larger and larger. And then we're moving into this, consumers to things, and then ultimately things to things. So what do we mean by this? Things like wearables, iWatches, all those things that are going to be out there with sensors that are going to tell us either something about humans or something about other equipment. And what happens as this sphere gets larger and larger is that these things may actually never make their way back to the data center. All the data that's being thrown off from all of these sensors, that amount of information gets so large, but maybe it never comes back to that central data repository. And we go from this world that's gone from consolidation to expansion, back to consolidation, and now what we see is it's going back to expansion again. So the one thing that's reliable about the IT market is that it's always changing. Just when you think you've got it figured out, it's always changing. And of course, without something like cloud, where there's a platform where you can deal with this ever-increasing sphere of more and more users, and then thinking about some of these users that aren't in your trusted sphere, what platform would you use to build that internally? It becomes harder and harder for us over time. But at the end of the day, we still have to be able to perform at a business level and at an enterprise level, and you've still got to be able to secure your data. So what is it that we're going to do as we go forward here? So I've spent a lot of time looking at this market over the last couple of years, and we've collected a lot of data, and I'm going to show that to you today. One thing that I think about all the time is in this era that we're in, is that everybody has felt, I think in some ways, a little bit polarized about what they do with their business. And in a market where the cost of capital is low right now, interest rates are very low, one of the unique things that we see happening in this market is that incumbent vendors and incumbent players, they're reluctant to spend money. They get a little bit paralyzed by what they're seeing as all this new invention out there and don't really know where to invest. And of course, what happens is new players come along in the market. They don't have any legacy business that they're tied to. They go out and they raise money and they start spending it. And they start spending it in ways that makes it very, very uncomfortable for existing players and existing companies. And so we're in this incredible era where we start to see a massive turnover in the entire vendor landscape, whether it's IT, manufacturing, finance. Think about even the credit card business, right? Did you see all the announcements that Apple made last week around person-to-person payments with their phone? Right? You start thinking about the credit card industry being disrupted by up-and-coming companies that were IT companies and now actually own a network of payees that they can go after. You start thinking about markets like the taxi business, right? Think about Uber. Uber's valued at $17 billion today. They've raised $1.2 billion in funding. It's amazing what's going on in the market right now. And when I look at IT and how we've evolved IT to meet those needs and those changes in the business, what we still tend to see, which is on the left-hand side of the chart, which is a lot of IT shops, they're not getting really additional funding from IT budgets. They continue to be constrained. And a lot of the IT projects still tend to be what I think of as consolidation projects, right? A little bit more virtualization, a little bit more around trimming out employees, a little bit more around systems integration. But we don't tend to see what we used to see 15 years ago, which is IT projects that drive the top line. And I feel like we've gone through this very, very heavy period of consolidation in IT, and what we haven't done is we haven't evolved the IT executive. The IT hero over the last 10 years has been the CIO that's been able to take out cost. It hasn't really been the era where we've seen the CIO being able to innovate and drive the top line for the business. And this is what we're actually starting to see now with cloud, quite frankly. A much healthier view of the portfolio is what's in the middle, right? You've got a healthy investment around consolidation projects, maintenance projects, and new investment. And by new investment, I mean projects that help drive the business and drive the top line. So we did a study earlier this year. We talked to 2,000 people like you. We talked to them in 10 different countries across the globe, and we asked them, these are customers of hosting services or cloud services, and we asked them, what does their IT project portfolio look like? And it looks exactly like this. And what is that? That's exactly the same as what we have in the middle at 451, where we think about a healthy portfolio for investment in the business, as well as being able to maintain the business. So what does this tell us? It tells us that the customers that are going to cloud are doing it because they want to grow their business, not because they want to cut costs. And I think this is one of the biggest myths that I've seen around cloud to date, is that everybody wants to go to cloud because it's cheaper. Cloud's not necessarily cheaper. It may even cost you more money, but what it enables you to do is think about your business differently as an IT professional in terms of how you can help the business, the corporation you work for, to grow and to put in place new applications that you may not be able to invest in internally. So we have to think about this market very differently. And when we asked customers in this study, again, they're hosting and cloud customers, what their organizational goals are, and we asked them this in the study in 2013 and 2014, what was really interesting is what grew in terms of their goals over time. And what grew was they wanted to lower risk and they wanted to speed time to market. And what we saw shrink is cutting costs. So again, what does this tell us? It tells us that customers are looking to move forward, but they want to do it in a way that they're not bringing in more risk to their business. So what they want is innovation without risk. And of course, we live in this era. We're in the Target era. It's probably not a surprise to any of you in the audience. The CIO and the CEO of Target both lost their jobs over the data breach last year. 70 million users were affected by the Target breach. That's about 25% of the US population. In terms of hard costs, it cost Target $61 million, but the real impact to their business was the time at which this took place. It hit them right before the Christmas period, which basically sets them up for the rest of the year. So they're paying for this all throughout 2014. And I think this is a great example of a phenomenal American brand where they're doing pretty much the right thing. This was a breach with one of their contractors. One of their external contractors' email was stolen and a password was taken out of it. It was something that probably goes on all the time in every one of the large corporations that we do work with. And yet, it really brought down their business, and it continues to impact them today. But what I think about in this instance is that this is the first time, as part of our generation, that we've seen a CIO and a CEO lose their jobs over data. So finally, I feel like the world is starting to recognize that the biggest asset that a company has is their data, and it's part of their IT organization. And I think we've now started to realize, as we want to grow and move forward with our business, that we have to be able to secure what's happening inside our IT organization and data centers. And then how do you think about going to the cloud if you're trying to secure it? So here's something else that's really interesting. When we talked to the customers in this study about who the ultimate end users of the applications were that they were deploying out in their various cloud portfolios, and we started with traditional dedicated hosting, hosted private cloud, which is a cloud with a hosting provider where all the infrastructure is dedicated to them, public cloud, and SaaS. What you can see that's very interesting is that blue bar, the dark blue bar, which is employees, starts to go down. And what it tells us is as customers go out increasingly to more public cloud options, the users that they want to serve are their customers. It's not the employees. This isn't about cutting costs on the employees. It's about being able to get out and reach out to your customers and consumer base. What that also tells me as an analyst is more money is going to be spent here. So think about the applications that you spend a lot of money on internally. Is it your employee applications? How many of you here think you have these really great employee-based apps? Right? Where we want to spend the money as IT professionals is with our customers, because that's the face to our business. So there's going to be a lot of investment here. We're starting to see that customers like yourselves are already starting to realize that this really isn't a cost-cutting measure, that this is about improving and increasing your business. And what we also asked them was what they're spending money on. So we asked them to take a look between on-premise investment versus off-premise investment. And we also asked them what they were doing on-prem in terms of their infrastructure deployment, as well as their hosted deployment models. And what we saw is that in this sample, about 41% of all the spending that these customers were doing was on-prem. And again, this is a sample of hosting and cloud customers, so they're already biased towards outsourcing. In the real world, it's a little bit more like 80-20. And you can see that they definitely want to move a little bit more off-prem in 2 years. But what was interesting when we looked at their on-premise environments, when we looked at private cloud, virtualized environments, and standalone environments, the growth that they see over the next 2 years is actually around virtualization again. And I can tell you why. Because on-premise private cloud has already far exceeded a lot of the customers' expectations that we work with. And they feel like they need to go back and to take another run at virtualization so that they can get most of their applications ready for an on-prem private cloud environment. And then what we saw around infrastructure as a service, software as a service, platform as a service, we saw a little bit of increase, rather decrease in infrastructure as a service and an increase in outsourcing. And what I tend to see as an analyst is the lines between traditional outsourcing and hosting and service provider work is becoming very, very blurred. And people are having a very difficult time telling them apart right now. But when we look at what customers are going to do when they go out to an infrastructure provider, what's growing dramatically is hosted private cloud. And what's the reason for that? So we're in this world where we've got more and more users. That sphere is expanding all the time. You're trying to deploy enterprise workloads. So what is it that you really want to be able to do? You want to be able to secure it. And the public cloud today is really not in a place where a lot of customers feel comfortable with their data and being able to secure that data. So the next best alternative is this thing that we call hosted private cloud. And that's about going out to a company like a Rackspace, for example, where the infrastructure is dedicated to you. It has all the automation and orchestration capabilities of cloud, but you as a customer are able to dictate what the service level agreements are around that and what the security around that looks like. And what we also know is that this is going to be very much a hybrid world. There's not one answer for every application or all applications. There's going to be many, many different solutions for the many applications that you have. This is very much a hybrid world. And we see most of the customers today that are deploying cloud solutions, half of them very much want to have a hybrid model where they're able to connect one cloud solution to another, whether it's an on-premise cloud to a hosted private cloud or even to a public cloud. And what you can see right now on the chart on the right is that on-premise private cloud with a hosted private cloud is the most dominant choice model today. There's definitely a lot of connection to the public cloud going on, but people that we talk to are defaulting to the hosted private cloud model. And so what we like to say is that the road to hybrid cloud is private. And think about that. If you can put a hoster in front of a lot of public solutions, you are in control. You control what the SLAs look like. You can sign the business agreement. You can decide what the security access looks like. And what we also know is that a lot of the customers that we deal with now believe that they have to pay a premium for cloud security. And what's really interesting on the left-hand side is the blue bar, which is, are you hosting a cloud solution subject to audit with your security team? Overwhelmingly, 77% yes. So what do you need? You need a provider that's willing to open up the doors to you and let you in and let you see what's going on. And guess what? You're probably going to pay a premium for that, just like you pay a premium for that on-premise. You really shouldn't expect that this is something that's going to be a basic service with your hosting providers. And the good hosting providers are going to tell you exactly what you're buying with your basic service, and they're going to suggest to you what else you should be buying in order to secure your environment. And again, what I hear from customers like yourselves is, it's got to be my way, right? I'm only going to go to cloud when I'm ready. And transparency is the #1 differentiator of the vendors in the market right now. One more thing I want to leave you with before I bring up the panel is customer support. I think another one of those myths is that when you go to the cloud, you're just basically going to give up customer support, right? What you're going to get is access through a community forum or some kind of online tool. Well, guess what? Most of the people we talk to, they still want someone to pick up the phone. And if they can't pick up the phone, they should at least be able to email you. And that's the world that we live in, right? We live in a world where we want to innovate, but we want to do it without risk. Probably means a little bit of a premium is going to be paid there. But this is very much the world that we live in today. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up the panel, and they're going to talk to you about the initiatives with Rackspace around private cloud. Thank you. So with us today is Darren Hansen, Jeff DeVoter, and Arian Mayhis. Yes. Would you like to just spend a couple of minutes introducing yourselves so that the audience knows what you do at Rackspace?
So I'm Darren Hansen. I'm the Vice President of our OpenStack practice within our Rackspace managed private cloud portfolio that we collectively all represent. Our mission is to be the world's foremost expert in operating OpenStack private clouds. We firmly believe that our customers should remain hyper-focused on developing the applications that have uptime built into the application, and we should be your partner for delivering the API that those applications interact with. We have delivered private cloud solutions for over 100 customers in every region of the globe, in both Rackspace data centers as well as customer data centers. So this is the first product that has allowed us to take fanatical support from only available in a Rackspace data center to, if you have gear that you'd like to repurpose and become more efficient in your own data center or in a third-party data center, we can provide a level of support from that perspective as well. But the idea is, and I loved Brian McManus' slide that talked about why do something yourself that others do way, way better. We have teams of Rackers that have written books on neutron networking, that have written books on OpenStack security, that have contributed to the community from the outset of OpenStack, that have been involved in the building of our public cloud based on OpenStack. So we firmly believe that whereas it's very expensive and risky to be able to hire and retain your own OpenStack expertise, why wouldn't you partner with us with all of the expertise that we bring to the table? And you get the benefit not only of what it means to operate your cloud, but what it means to operate over 100 clouds globally. And everything that we've learned from all of our customers that have deployed OpenStack, we can put to work for you. So that's OpenStack in a nutshell.
Great. Arian.
Arian Mayhis, GM for the VMware private cloud practice at Rackspace. Our sole charter in life is to be the industry experts in VMware hosted solutions. It's largely unknown that Rackspace has such a large familiarity and skill set with VMware. We've been delivering hosted VMware solutions to our customers since 2006. We're managing nearly 45,000 VMs today. In fact, we are one of the top premier partners in the vCloud Air network, or formerly known as the VMware Solution Provider Program. So that said, what we try to do with Rackspace, we've got tremendous brand equity around Fnatic Support, and you've got tremendous brand equity around VMware being such a proven and known technology in the industry. So I think that pairing together is quite a compelling story for our customers. So admittedly, we haven't done entirely a lot with that solution. We've provided what we call historically server virtualization or managed virtualizations, which is just fundamentally managed VMs for our customers. And there's a lot of tremendous value that the customers have found in that, but not until recently, in parallel with the investments with Microsoft as well as OpenStack, are we doubling or tripling down in our private cloud or managed private cloud portfolio. So VMware being one of those, you should start to see a lot more offerings and technologies that underpin Fnatic Support through VMware very soon.
And so my name is Jeff DeVerter, and my roots at Rackspace start in building out our Microsoft SharePoint Exchange and our Link practice. In fact, Microsoft's, or Rackspace's more specifically, history with Microsoft goes back almost to our founding. We've earned the Partner of the Year 4 times more than any other hoster. A vast percentage of our organization, our customers, run Microsoft-centric workloads. And while we answered the call specific to those other applications, one thing that we haven't had as much in the past is really adopting the Microsoft virtualization and private cloud based solution. And so that's the product that I lead now, that we have built up. And it really provides to our customer the ability to run Microsoft from infrastructure all the way up through the application and even connecting out beyond the data center walls when that works best for their application, when a hybrid environment really needs to be there. So a Microsoft Hyper-V capacity and capability, as well as System Center, when you combine those two things together, you get what Microsoft calls Microsoft Cloud OS, and that's what our new offering is very much focused on.
OpenStack, VMware, Microsoft,
We
all
all
in the
get
same
along.
company, working together.
Getting along.
Okay.
We play nicely
I'm
together.
going to wrap my mind
On
around
stage.
that. So what is the best practice then that you can give to your clients and customers as they think about what's the right cloud for them? How do they decide between the various offerings? Should they even have that much choice? You know, what are you seeing from customers as they go to cloud? Do they look for that type of offering, that type of distributed offering?
Yeah, the first thing that I would say we've learned over time that we talk to our customers about is know your app, know your workload. And if you need help understanding where it belongs, we will help you find where it belongs. That's one of the benefits of our managed private cloud portfolio, is that we can be, to a certain degree, completely agnostic to the technologies. A lot of customers will come in and we will be qualifying them for an OpenStack platform. And the minute that they ask me the question, tell me exactly how OpenStack does what vMotion does in VMware, that's when I have to stop the conversation and say, let me introduce you to my friend Arian. So really, from our standpoint, it is making sure that customers understand their app, understand what it means to have the resiliency built into the application rather than demanding resiliency from hardware and software. And if you clear that conversation, it's a great fit for OpenStack, and otherwise it's one of these gentlemen.
Yeah, and for the type of customer that I'm profiling would be the VMware customer today, right? There are 44 million VMware VMs in the world today. 90% of those are still on customer premise. Rackspace is suited very nicely for a hybrid gateway from private cloud and potentially public cloud. So it's not necessarily customers, we're not targeting customers that are seeking a fundamental platform shift. It's not a customer that's using Microsoft that wants to shift to VMware or vice versa, as if you're on Lotus Notes shifting to Microsoft Exchange. So 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, the customer will already be using some instance of VMware today, and they're just running out of scale and capacity and the skill sets required to operate that environment.
Yeah, so what excites me about it is it gets us out of the seat of being, like a lot of our competitors, to being evangelists. You will fit into this thing that we've built in this one technology, when in the reality, if you look at a lot of the mid and enterprise-sized companies, you find them having all 3 of these technologies, and in some cases more, running inside of their data center. So having a company that has the ability to answer the call and to serve with the customer's chosen technology is what I think is really exciting.
So I know over the years, for a lot of cloud implementations, whether they're on-prem or off-prem, not everything's gone perfectly, right? I think there's a lot of learnings, certainly that I hear as I go out into the market around mistakes made. Is there anything that you can share that you think are good learnings for the customers out here in terms of what they should be thinking about and some of the tougher issues that they should be considering as they think about cloud?
Yeah, I think definitely leave it to the guy who's responsible for the 4-year-old open source project to start with a conversation about mistakes. The last year has been an incredible learning experience, as I talked about, deploying over 100 private clouds. A couple of things that we discovered recently is that, for one, software-defined networking and software-delivered high availability. We did some very elegant things using Neutron and Open vSwitch to try to provide software-based high availability, and it just proved to not be ready for prime time. You talked about customers want to come to this platform free of risk for the efficiency that it provides. Well, that element of SDN and software-defined HA delivered too much risk for our customers. So we are actually doing a product launch next week to launch our Icehouse version of OpenStack with a new reference architecture that removes all software-defined networking. It replaces Open vSwitch with Linux Bridge and other more proven technologies and goes back to hardware-based load balancers and firewalls to provide more stability for our customers. Another mistake that I think we made is in the second iteration of our product, as I call it, we focused very much on adoption. So we took all of the OpenStack services and delivered them on 2 collapsed controller nodes that did not scale well. The 2 nodes were not only responsible for all that software-defined networking, but each one of the OpenStack services running on a different VM. And so if Keystone began to get hammered or Neutron began to get hammered, you would have to completely stamp out an entirely new set of controllers to scale, and therefore you have a second cloud at that point. So I thought the earlier presentation by the gentleman from Docker was interesting. We have actually containerized OpenStack services inside a now 3-controller plane that delivers better resiliency and better scalability so that each one of those services can scale independently. If you start to get hammered from a networking perspective, you just add 2 controllers to the control plane and you continue to scale. So we went from maxing out at 75 compute node private clouds to being designed to go upwards of 200. And just to give everybody a sneak preview, one of the things that all of this learning has driven us toward is, as part of our product launch next week, we will announce that we have the first and industry-leading 4.9 API uptime guarantee for our customers. So when you talk about removing risks and a partner that has skin in the game, if we can't deliver all of the OpenStack APIs with 4 nines of API uptime, we will pay our customers penalties. And that's all of those mistakes and all those learnings going back into our product, and one of the reasons you should partner with us.
Absolutely. So I guess what we've learned, both collaborating with our customers and endeavoring managed service provider solutions for our customers, is we've received quite a bit of customers that have overcommitted and overcorrected on traditional public cloud, and they found a lot of value in the resiliency and, again, the brand equity that VMware in particular has brought to bear. So I still think there's a tremendous cohort, depending on where you are in IT maturity, and value that customers place on a known good quantity that is the VMware solution stack. As far as things that we have learned is really not doing enough with that. So that's all changing in real time, of course, but the fact that we've amassed an impressive customer base of nearly 45,000 VMs on a managed virtualization environment alone, I think is fairly impressive, but I think we could do so much more within that and really change how customers consume VMware virtualization and cloud with us today.
So I think that from a lessons learned perspective, one of the things to really consider, whether you're thinking public cloud, whether you're thinking private cloud, whether you're thinking of leaving it in your own data center, is to consider this entity, this thing that you're about to send off into the wild of private cloud. Should it leave as that entity that it is, or is there a way to abstract some of those components into some of this new technology that exists? Whether you're taking, this age-old application, we'll go back to my old life in the SharePoint world where I built that business at Rackspace, and say, as opposed to just lifting and shifting your data from one place to another, is it really time to start to consider, when is that application still right for all of the types of data that's there, and really should you break some of that up and leverage public cloud efficiencies and economies of scale where it makes sense for data that can sit there, so that you really are leveraging and maximizing the investment that you would make than in a private cloud technology. And choosing a technology that has that ability to be extensible, both vertically and horizontally, I think is vitally important.
So it's really, there's infrastructure learnings and experience on the infrastructure side, the ability to sign a business agreement around SLAs, and somebody there to help you to make a decision around what applications should be put in which different type of environment. Are there any really hard questions you think the audience should ask different providers as they go out and they evaluate all the different companies and options in the market? What would you advise them as a good question to ask to dig in and make sure that that company really knows what they're doing and that they're able to support what their needs are going to be?
Yeah, I really like the way you frame the conversation in your presentation about the road to public cloud going through private cloud. And so I think I would ask any partner, do they have the breadth to be able to follow you along that entire journey? We talk a lot amongst ourselves about applications falling into a couple of different categories. And where we are, I think, right now, this is just my feelings on the matter, there's 10% of workloads that are back office workloads, old ERP systems, things in the back office that will never move towards a cloud model. And that 10% is probably locked in place. There's probably 60% of the workloads that are in some form of virtualization, and a VMware or Microsoft-based private cloud is a logical next step. And then you start to think about how you can modernize those applications for a true cloud platform that an OpenStack offers. And then there's 30%, which is where all of the new development is going, new applications going into an OpenStack environment. And so I just think that you have to challenge whatever provider that you're selecting. Are you going to be able to follow me along that entire journey for the 90% of applications that I want to head down this path? And we all have private cloud solutions on this stage, but we also happen to work for a company that delivers a very powerful public cloud capability. And so our ability to opportunistically use public cloud, backing up these private cloud solutions, and then helping our customers continue on that journey as public cloud matures and they want to put more and more things and they begin to trust security and compliance in the public cloud. Can your provider go on that entire journey with you, and will they stand behind it with SLAs and with a level of support that you need? Because as you mentioned, customers still want the human element on the other end of the phone.
Customer support experience.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. And in that same vein, it's about, do you want a partner you can trust, or do you want a vendor, right? So I think each one has inherent value depending on your workload, but really starting with the workload first and then backing into the technology is the right way. At Rackspace, we have customers that bring us, a single tier 3 or tier 4 application because they're not sure about this, even though we've been doing this for well over a decade at incredible scale. They're still not uncertain about the managed service provider model and how that works. But then again, we have customers that bring us their entire data center, their $1 billion a year revenue generating application, because they have that trust with us, and they don't want to do it themselves because they know that we can do it more effectively and more efficiently than they can. So it really depends on the workload and where you place that value on that service provider.
I think my challenge would be, we have 3 different types of private cloud examples here. We talked about public cloud, we talked about specific applications, but at the end of the day, if the customer, if you, your customer, are thinking about your application leaving, the golden gates of your own data center, then the most important thing that you can consider, and it sounds fundamental and sounds rudimentary, but it's what is the quality of the managed hosting and where this is going, right? Is it close to your customer? Is it close to the people who are going to consume it? Is there a great track record of stellar service? I mean, is the foundation of all this cloudy and application support that's built on, is it a solid foundation? It sounds like something we don't have to think about quite as much these days, but it's still something you really need to consider and really need to do your homework on and make sure that the reputation and the quality coming out of those data centers is what you need, and that the folks who are answering the phone, if there are people who answer the phone, know what they're talking about around their chosen technology.
All right, that's great. That's all great advice. So with that, we're going to wrap up the panel. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.